दूसरा कोई रास्ता नहीं।
The From TV show has us all hooked onto our screens, waiting for Sundays to come so that we can get some more clues about this town. An enigmatic and mysterious town that will have you trapped from the moment you see the fallen tree blocking your road is definitely a situation I would not want even my worst enemy to go through. Since the first season of the show, characters and the viewers have all agreed on one thing: escaping from the town is the main priority. So now that Season 3 is almost close to wrapping up, we shall sit down and think about what different ways our favorite characters can leave this hellhole.
Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
The selective gateway, the Lighthouse. I'm sure all of us were screaming our heads off when the second season finale aired. I do not think anyone could have guessed that the Lighthouse would turn out to be the key to escaping this terrifying town. I personally thought that Tabitha would just go up to the Lighthouse and get more clues that would help her solve the mystery behind the kids locked in the tower. Instead, we got Tabitha going upstairs, and then the boy in white showed up out of thin air and flung her out of the lighthouse. I thought that was it. Tabitha is dead, but nope. Then she opened her eyes she's in Camden, Maine. So understandably, when she came back into the town, I definitely wanted her to share her experience with the townsfolk, which honestly she did. But the town meeting was so bad. When Jade said that a meeting with more than 2 people was useless, I did not think it would come out to be true in such an outrageous way. Everyone just kept screaming and blaming Tabitha, telling her that she had disappointed everyone by not bringing in help, especially Fatima. She kept saying how Tabitha needed to go and beg people to believe her, and even if 10 people thought she was an absolute lunatic, Tabitha should have kept trying until someone believed her. Now, don't get me wrong. I do understand Fatima's desperation, but her frustrations were misplaced. And I mean, if Tabitha actually went and started begging people on the streets to believe her, I am sure that she would have been reported to the authorities. And then they would first put her on a psychiatric hold to lock her up, because everyone would think Tabitha murdered Jim and the kids and was now cooking up some hogwash story to shift the blame. So yep, while it is fun to say that she would have done this and that, in reality, I think whatever Tabitha managed to do while out in Camden was good enough. After all the blame game, Dale, the snarkiest person in town, decided that he would just solve the problem himself. He heard Bottle Tree, Lighthouse, and Camden and decided that his odds were strong enough. So while Tabitha and Jade are trying to piece together the dates they got from the Bottle Trees, Dale shows up. He judges Jade and Tabitha for sitting around and looking into the Bottle Tree and steps into the Faraway Tree himself. What he thought clearly did not work out well for him. This is because instead of reaching the lighthouse, Dale went inside the pool wall, as in embedded into the concrete wall, and got crushed to death. Sorry, Dale, no going back for you. While Dale's death was traumatizing for a lot of fans, I think his death was an important plot point, because seeing Dale's death confirms that not everyone who steps inside a faraway tree will reach the lighthouse. Seems like while the lighthouse can work as a gateway to reach the outside world, it is not effective for everyone in this town. Perhaps it only works for the chosen ones, which would explain why Tabitha managed to get through it and reach the outside world. But if that's the case, then how else will the other people get out of this town? Well, we have some interesting theories that just might hit the nail. Could the faraway trees be the answer we've been looking for so long? The town seems to be controlled by an entity that pushes back when the townsfolk try to solve the mystery and try to get out. When Boyd and Sarah went out in the woods and the storm was approaching, the boy in white showed up and told Sarah that Nathan was right about this place. Whatever they have done has made it mad, and the best way to save themselves against it is by going through the faraway tree. The boy in white made it evident in his statement that the faraway tree is safe, while the outside environment is not. Now, of course, we cannot forget the part where this faraway tree was the one that sent Boyd to the dungeon and gave him the bloodworms. But overall, the faraway trees have come in clutch when it comes to saving people. It sent Sarah to the church basement, Julie to the root cellar, and Victor to the tunnel system. Now, the tunnels were also a dangerous place, but when Victor was sent there, it was nighttime and the creatures were likely outside. The very next morning, Tabitha broke through the basement floor and ended up there, and together they scurried away. So I think the faraway trees do have a basic concept step of saving the people who step into them, but somehow the entity controls where the people are sent. If Julie, Sarah, or Victor ended up in the dungeons, they would have run out immediately instead of trying to save Mart. The fact that Boyd ended up with the bloodworms was because he has this savior complex, and that was what the entity at play used against him. Now, here is what I think. I think the entity and the Faraway Trees work as two separate beings, so if the townsfolk somehow managed to get to the power source of the Faraway Trees, they might be able to use that to get back to the real world. We saw in the cave paintings that people who found the town in the past were on boats. Now, what if instead of going to the Faraway Trees, they used the Faraway Trees as boats? I know it sounds like a far-fetched idea, but the Faraway Trees are effectively teleportation devices, so if they could hypothetically make a boat out of a Faraway Tree or make a boat and infuse it with the power source of the Faraway Trees, then maybe our characters could use the body of water Elgin had dreamed of and leave via that. I can't help but think about the scene from the Pirates of the Caribbean movie where they sank the boat and went to the afterlife to get Captain Jack Sparrow back. Maybe that is the way this body of water Elgin dreamed up works. Another key point that I think the Faraway Tree could be the answer is the fact that the trees are a clear nod to the Faraway Tree novel series, written by the fantastic Enid Blyton. In the book Enchanted Woods, we learn about the Faraway Tree, the super tall tree with a ladder on top of it. If you climb the ladder, you end up in a new world every time you visit because the gateway to these worlds is always rotating. The children can come and go freely, but they have to come back to the ladder before the land moves away. Otherwise, they will be stuck there until the ladder and land connect again. I think that maybe the Faraway Trees in FromVille work on a similar principle. The places they can send a person to are constantly rotating, and if the townsfolk are willing to be brave and walk into the same tree and keep a tally of where they end, they will find a pattern which might help them crack the code. Well, this would be a long-drawn process, and after Dale's death, I doubt anyone would be eager to step inside a tree. It is definitely worth a shot. I also would not be surprised if there is an actual ladder on top of the Faraway Trees we see in the show. These trees are significantly thicker than the usual conifers we see in the woods. I think it is definitely worth a shot if one of the members of the town decides to climb up a Faraway Tree as high as they can to get a better overview of the town. That way they would be able to figure out just how far the town perimeter is and create a much more efficient map. Also, if there is an invisible barrier at play that refuses to let them go out, which seems highly likely, the high ground would help them figure that out as well. The perimeter check could also help. One of the showrunners mentioned that the answers the characters are looking for are right out the window. The only window we have seen focused on rather insistently throughout the whole show is the room that Fatima and Ellis live in. I think that instead of just using the window to enjoy the scenic beauty, townsfolk can actually use it as a checkpoint. We already know that the colony house is on higher ground, so effectively it gives a better visual of mapping the perimeter of the town. So why not use the window as the center and go as far as you can see from there? The talismans seem to work in tents, so even if you have to stay out at night, you'd be safe. So if someone goes out in the direction of the window faces and walks as far as they can see from the window, they have a measure of the distance. Using that, they can trace a circular path all around the colony house and see if there is a break in the loop that they are stuck in. If the townsfolk follow the road that goes through the town, they could keep looping back. So maybe breaking the loop and thinking outside the box would be the key. The biggest reason why I feel like the perimeter check would help is because that would help the townsfolk know just how far they can venture out there without getting looped back. If the invisible barrier that I mentioned is truly at play, there has to be a break somewhere. Even if there is no break, people will know that they can make their own path, which will definitely help out in mapping the place. Knowing the place like the back of your hand would definitely help the townsfolk navigate it better. It is better to know how to get back to safety and what threats are out there instead of being sitting ducks in a predictable place. What about the talismans? This theory is a bit wild, so I suggest you take it with a grain of salt, okay? So the talismans work in an enclosed space, we know that. What if we put a talisman on the bus and start driving in the middle of the night? The creatures might chase after the bus, but they would not be able to get in because it is still an enclosed space with the talisman hanging. Now, yes, I know the path loops back and might bring us back to the town. We saw that happen when it came to the ambulance, but we have never used a vehicle with a talisman on the road. What if the talisman works against the invisible barrier that the entity controlling the town has set? That might break the loop and the townsfolk might be able to drive off into the night. Now, of course, this is a bit difficult to pull off because A, Donna shot the tires of the bus to prevent anyone from escaping, and B, we do not know how much gas is in the vehicle. But it is definitely worth the shot, right? The entities at play. Up until now, we have had two different entities claiming that if you help them, everyone can go back home. We've got the mysterious voices that Sarah heard and the kimono lady who keeps showing up in front of Elgin. The voices that Sarah heard are definitely evil because they wanted her to kill Ethan, and I doubt sacrificing a child would be the key to everyone's problems, but the kimono lady is yet to make any unreasonable demands, so I do have high hopes for her. Personally, I think the kimono lady would eventually bring Elgin to the lake near the settlement, which would turn out to be the body of water that he had been dreaming about. Maybe that is where she drowned or was held captive, and by helping her get peace, Elgin would get some information or a major clue that would help bring everyone home. The symbol and connections to how FromVille works. This next bit of speculation might be extremely out there, but bear with me. So imagine you got trapped in a town surrounded by woods, given no natural obstacles or supernatural horrors, and granted all the resources you need, you could just take a walk out of the place if you venture out for long enough. I mean, that's what common sense would tell you. Here's the catch though. Our brains are hardwired to perceive distance and space in terms of regular geometry. The math geeks out there would know it as the standard Euclidean geometry. However, there are other geometries in math that work in counterintuitive and frankly mind-boggling ways that might even appear supernatural. One such example is the Poincare disk model in hyperbolic geometry. It is a disk, but the notion of distance inside it is altered so that an observer would have to walk infinitely to reach the boundary of it. It would appear as though they're getting closer and closer, yet never quite managing to get there. Essentially, from the inside, the disk is inescapable. Now, if that doesn't sound like FromVille already, there's a lot more. The way parallel lines and arcs meet in hyperbolic geometry, specifically in the Poincare disk, looks uncannily similar to the symbol that Jade obsesses over. In fact, M.C. Escher, an artist known for portraying locations or structures that look like altered, remodeled versions of reality, has often employed the Poincare disk to create intricate designs known as tessellations on the disk. Apart from the town and forest being virtually inescapable locations, much like Escher's work, they also seem to be governed by strange geometric phenomena, such as the road seemingly taking everyone back to where they started. Could the symbol be a depiction of the true geometry of the place where the usual laws of nature are suspended? If there is a way to escape once the weird mechanics are understood, or is the lighthouse a location that serves as a portal to the familiar world where geometry behaves less like Escher's paintings and more like common sense? If we were to go off of this theory, then what if the location of Lighthouse, not the lighthouse itself, is the key to escaping this town? What if after saving the children, the Chosen One has to guide the people of the town to this very location, and instead of jumping off the lighthouse or being thrown off of it, they get teleported back into the real world with ease using some magic system that we have yet to learn about? The lighthouse itself is located in a very strange place. We see the mountains and forests all around it with not a single body of water anywhere nearby. So I believe there is more to the location and the geometry of the place than the structure, that is, the lighthouse in itself. What do you guys think? Marvelous verdict. As the showrunners are hellbent on giving us barely enough answers, these theories are just speculations that we have made while pondering over every clue that we've received so far. Since the genre of this show is science fiction and horror, I would not be surprised if they decide to throw aliens into the mix. But I will be disappointed if that happens. Leaving this dangerous town is not as easy as it seems. But the showrunners have said in multiple interviews that the clues are right in front of our eyes, and we just have to connect to them as we go. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think there is another way to get out of town other than the ones we've mentioned so far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And as always, I'll see you on the next marvelous video.
If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.